To fully grasp the true meaning of the word din, we must consult a variety of sources, including Arabic lexicons, Semitic languages, Prophet Muhammad's biography, early Islamic inscriptions, and, finally, the first Qur'anic translations. We will see how the word din refers to a kingdom or state with its own rule and laws and has nothing to do with what we know today in terms of beliefs and worship. Let us begin with the Arabic lexicons. In Arabic lexicons, the term din has several meanings. There are several meanings for it in Lisan Al Arab by Ibn Manzur, Taj Al-Arus min Jawahir Al-Qamus by Al-Zabidi, and Al-Qamus Al-Muhit by Fairuzabadi. While there are meanings for the term din that are related to the meaning of the kingdom, such as reign, dominion, judicature, judgment, recompense, reckoning, submissiveness, notability, oppression, compulsion, and obedience, we also find Islam, worship, sin, pious, habit, matter, monotheism, Millah, and a name for all what God Almighty is worshipped with. As is well known, these lexicons were written by Muslim lexicographers after the Prophet Muhammad's mission, and thus the influence of the Quran is clear. The definitions given in these dictionaries are more of an interpretation of the Quran based on the dominant concept of meaning in these eras. This is clear from definitions such as Islam, monotheism, and a name for all that God Almighty is worshipped with, the latter of which is the most commonly used until now. These dictionaries mention the verb dint, which is derived from the term din and means to reign or to become a ruler. A fascinating derivative of din is also mentioned, which is the term Medina, which means a city because it is ruled. As is obvious, Arabic lexicons indicate a meaning that emphasizes a political entity with an administrative and legal system, which is referred to as a state or kingdom. The concept of worship or Islam evolved over time, which refers to the prevailing concept of the meaning of the word din at the time. This is clear from terms like Islam. Or, how can we explain the use of such meanings prior to the Prophet Muhammad's mission and the emergence of Islam? Moving on to Semitic cognate languages such as Hebrew and Aramaic, which, like Arabic, belong to the Semitic language family, we find the same word, din, which means law or judiciary. In ancient Hebrew, for example, the term bet din means house of judgment. There is also mention of the law or the judiciary, which refers to a political entity. In the Prophet's biography, we find the word din used in an incident that occurred after the Prophet Muhammad's death, when a meeting was held in Saqifat Banu Sa'ida to decide on a new leader for the kingdom, and Abu Bakr delivered his famous speech. Beware that Muhammad has died, and there has to be someone to undertake or conduct this din. As we can see, this is a purely political gathering to appoint someone as the kingdom's leader or ruler. Abu Bakr used the term din to describe the kingdom, saying, and there has to be someone to undertake or conduct this din, implying that a person must be agreed upon to take over or carry out the affairs of the kingdom or state. The same usage can be found in what Ibn Sa'd mentions during the Battle of the Camel, which occurred 36 years after the migration, between two Muslim parties. During the battle, Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya attacked a man from Basra, and when he was about to kill him, the man said, I belong to the din of Abu Talib. Again, the word din refers to a political entity. The battle was between two political parties, and the man was declaring which party he belonged to. That has nothing to do with religion at all. I belong to the din of Prophet Muhammad, the man would have said, referring to his religion. Instead, he stated, I belong to the din of Abu Talib, referring to Ali ibn Abi Talib, the leader of one of the fighting parties. Now we move to one of the inscriptions for the early Islamic era, the Najaf inscription, dating from 85 to 170 AH, in the year of the Hijra, the migration. Within these inscriptions, some included the term din, according to Yehuda D. Nevo, Zamira Cohen, and Dalia Heftman. The fourth is MM1081, and there the meaning of din is problematic. The most meaningful translation there would be his community, i.e., those who regulate their affairs according to Allah's will. Commenting on the translation of early Arabic texts, the study says, the translation of early Arabic texts presents many problems. The Arabic dictionaries upon which Western scholarship usually relies are the product of several centuries of Muslim exegesis. They accept a priori a set of basic assumptions, which Western linguistics would require to be proven. As a result, there is a set of key words with religious significance, whose meaning is known and accepted by Western scholars of the Muslim literature, without ever having undergone the intensive scrutiny usually accorded to the words of ancient languages whose semantic field must be defined. As we see, these ancient inscriptions show how the meaning of the word din is closer to society or an entity that regulates the relationship of individuals, while it is still within the meaning that refers to a political entity. Finally, we turn to the first translations of the Quran, quoting Brent Nongbury from his book, Before Religion. Let us turn to the earliest English translation of the Quran. In 1647, André du Ryer produced the first French version, and 2 years later Alexander Ross published an English translation of this French version. In these excerpts from Ross's translation, the regular gloss of din, by way of the 17th century French loi, is law. The same was true of the much earlier Latin version produced by Robert of Ketton in the 12th century, in which lex was the preferred term, when his rather loose Latin translation is sufficiently literal to determine word-to-word correspondences. And it turns out there is some reason to think that these earlier translations, for all their faults, capture something that more recent translations miss. Then Nongbury continues, if we understand law as binding customs or practices that allow communities to function, du Ryer's French and Ross's English translations of din actually seem quite fitting. And he adds in his conclusion, those aspects of life covered by these terms, social order, law, etc., fall outside the idealized, private, interior realm associated with the modern concept of religion. Translating these terms as religion or conceptualizing any particular individual ancient religion, threskia, or din as religion, is thus bound to be a misleading practice. Nongbury comes to the conclusion here that translating the word din as religion, which means the individual private belief and practice between man and God, is deceptive, and that the closest meaning to the word din is the law that regulates the social system of individuals. As we can see from Arabic lexicons, Semitic languages, Prophet Muhammad's biography, early Islamic inscriptions, and the first translations of the Quran, they all point to a political entity with a judicial system and law. Now we will turn to the Quran and examine the meaning of the word din in the context of the Prophet's biography in Mecca and Medina.